so you know that feeling, right? Like when you open up your email and it's just crammed full of people promising you the secrets to marketing.
Yeah.
And it feels like every single day there's a new platform you're supposed to be on, or a brand new funnel, or some, guru promising that they've got the magic solution, some hack that nobody's ever seen before.
Right.
It's a lot.
It really is.
You can really make your head spin, especially, when you're actually trying to run a business.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're supposed to also be like a world-class expert in all of these different marketing tactics.
Yeah, and it's easy to sort of get caught up in that cycle too.
Absolutely.
Chasing all the different trends, spending your time and your resources maybe on tools that you don't even really need.
Yeah.
And losing sight of what really actually drives results.
Exactly. And so that's what we're going to kind of hit pause on today.
Okay.
All of that noise.
Yeah.
We've been looking at some of the insights from a marketing veteran, Michael Intravartolo.
Okay.
You might know him as Travs.
Gotcha.
And I think his take is really refreshing because he kind of argues that all of these, tactics that come and go, they're actually secondary.
Okay.
He really thinks that at the core of, if you want to be good at marketing, there are these three fundamental skills.
Interesting.
And that for anybody, if you can master those it's a game changer.
Yeah, no, that's a powerful idea to sort of strip away all of the complexity and just concentrate on those, those core abilities that help you weather any storm.
Exactly.
Things that stand the test of time.
Yeah. And I mean, especially you think about how much things change in the world of marketing.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you've got that foundation, it really doesn't matter what your niche is or, how big your business is.
Right.
Having that foundation is going to set you up for success.
Yeah.
So his article is called The Only 3 Marketing Skills You Need to Be Good. And his whole premise is if you can really master these 3 things, you're going to be able to, navigate all of the changes and the complexity, and you're not going to get sort of distracted by whatever the shiny new object of the day is.
Right. You're building something sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're building something that's going to last.
So I'm curious, what are these 3 kind of, core skills that he highlights?
Yeah. So the first one, and I love this phrasing he uses, communication that cuts through.
Okay.
And I think on the surface that might sound kind of obvious.
Right.
But if you think about it, how many businesses do you encounter, even on a daily basis, where you're just not quite sure what they actually do?
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, or why you should care.
Yeah.
And so he's saying that's actually a really common problem.
Right.
That so many businesses, they get so focused on, what their product is or what their service is.
Yeah.
That they don't do a good job of actually articulating the value in a way that their audience is going to understand and be compelled by.
Yeah. And especially when you think about things like, paid advertising.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have, like a couple of seconds to capture someone's attention.
That's it.
If you're not communicating clearly, you're wasting your money.
Exactly. You're just throwing money down the drain.
Right.
And so what he does is he really breaks it down into 3 questions.
Okay.
And he says, every single piece of marketing that you do, whether it's the copy on your website, whether it's a social media post, whether it's an email, whatever it is, it should answer these 3 questions.
Okay, I like it.
So the first one is, what problem do you solve?
Okay.
The second one is, why should someone care about that right now?
Gotcha.
And the third one is, what is the next step you want them to take?
I like that.
So pretty straightforward questions. But I think when you actually stop and think about it, it really forces you to look at things from the perspective of your audience.
It does. It makes you really hone in on that value proposition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, the way he puts it is, if you can't answer those 3 questions for somebody who knows nothing about your business in like a really clear and concise way, your message probably isn't as effective as it could be.
Absolutely. And I think that sense of urgency is so important.
Yeah.
The why is this important to me today?
Yes.
If you can't answer that for your customer, then you're missing something.
Totally. And I love this. He's got this really practical test.
Okay.
So he says, if you can't explain what your business does to someone who's completely outside of your industry in a single sentence, your messaging is too complex.
That's a good test.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's so true because we get so caught up in like our jargon and,
Absolutely. We live in our little bubbles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you can't just in a simple way say like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
You're probably losing people before they even understand the value.
Right. And I think the reason that works is it forces you to strip away all of that.
Yes.
You know, all the jargon, all the internal language, and really just hit on that one core benefit that you provide.
Yeah, and it has to be instant.
Right.
Like they have to understand it right away.
Exactly.
And he brings in this quote from Seth Godin that I think really illustrates this point.
Okay.
So Seth Godin says, marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories you tell.
That's good. Yeah.
But the thing is, those stories have to grab attention.
Immediately.
Yeah.
So fast.
Like a couple of seconds.
Yeah, you're competing with like, you know, the entire internet.
The entirety of human knowledge, yeah.
Exactly.
Technically.
And cat videos.
So you've got to be able to really cut through.
For sure.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, this all sounds great,
Yeah.
but like, how do I actually get better at this?
Yeah.
He actually points to a couple of resources.
Okay, cool.
So there's one called the 3-second rule of marketing, and it's all about, you know, how do you craft that hook?
Right. Yeah.
How do you grab somebody's attention?
Gotcha.
And then he also links to another post that's specifically about why marketing messages fail.
Okay.
And a lot of it comes back to, you know, not having that single sentence clarity.
Yeah.
So there are some resources there if you want to check them out.
Awesome.
But it really comes down to being really intentional
Yes.
about, you know, every word you use,
For sure.
every part of your marketing.
Absolutely.
It all has to be driving towards, you know, communicating that value.
Yeah.
And getting people to take that next step.
That call to action.
Yes.
Very important.
Okay, so that was the first skill, communication, that cuts through.
Okay.
The second skill he talks about is relentless consistency.
Okay.
And he is not messing around with this one.
All right.
He actually says flat out that consistency beats talent every time when it comes to marketing.
Interesting.
And I think that might be hard for some people to hear. But I think there's a real truth to it.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know, you can have the most, you know, amazing ideas.
Sure.
You could be so talented, you can come up with brilliant marketing campaigns.
Right.
But if you're only doing it, you know, once in a while,
Every once in a while.
you're not going to build any momentum.
Yeah, you're not going to build that trust.
Exactly.
Really.
And you're not going to see the results.
Right.
He said he's seen so many people who are incredibly gifted marketers,
Yeah.
but they just don't stick with it.
Right. They fizzle out.
They fizzle out.
Yep.
And he says on the flip side, he's seen people who maybe aren't, you know, the most, you know, naturally talented marketers,
Yeah.
but because they show up every single day.
They're there.
They're creating content. They're sending emails. They're, you know, engaging on social media. They're testing things. They're figuring out what works.
They build that audience.
They build the audience.
Yeah.
They build those relationships. And ultimately, that's what gets the results.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's all about establishing that presence.
Yes.
Right. Being reliable.
Yes.
You know, having your audience know that they can expect to see you.
Yeah.
To see your content, and just being there consistently.
Yeah, it's that know, like, and trust factor.
Exactly.
Like, people need to know that you're going to be there.
Yep.
So he gives a bunch of examples of what this looks like for him.
Okay.
So he says, you know, for him, relentless consistency means posting something valuable on LinkedIn every single day.
Wow.
It means sending out regular email updates.
Okay.
Even when he's thinking, you know, maybe nobody's reading these.
Right.
It means persistently following up with people.
Yeah.
Because he says, you know, a lot of people will reach out to someone once or twice and then give up.
Right.
But the real, you know, the magic happens when you keep following up.
Absolutely. And it's all about, you know, being present in the conversation.
Yes.
Both online and off.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, what all of these actions show
Yeah.
is that you're committed.
You're invested.
Yeah, you're committed to your audience.
Exactly.
You're committed to your goal.
When you're committed to your marketing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not about, you know, every single post being perfect.
Right.
Or every single email being perfect.
It's about showing up.
It's about showing up.
Consistently.
It's about being there.
Yep.
I love this. He brings in a Gary Vee quote here
Okay.
that I think really speaks to this idea of consistency.
Okay.
So Gary Vee says 99% of people don't market in the year that we actually live in.
That's so true.
And what he means by that is
Yeah.
being consistent isn't just about doing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
It's about, you know, being where your audience is right now.
Yeah.
Not where they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Right.
But where are they today?
Today, yeah.
What are they paying attention to?
What platforms are they on?
Yeah.
How are they consuming content?
Exactly.
Huge.
So being consistent means like, evolving the times as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah.
They're so used to doing things the way they've always done them.
Yeah.
But the world has changed. The way we consume information has changed.
Completely.
You have to adapt.
You have to adapt.
Or you're going to get left behind.
And I know that, thinking about relentless consistency, it can feel overwhelming.
Absolutely.
But he does touch on this idea that, systems can be helpful.
Sure.
Tools can be helpful.
Okay.
Even AI can be helpful.
Right.
So, you don't have to do everything manually.
Yeah. You don't have to be posting every single thing yourself every day.
Exactly.
There are tools that can help you.
There are tools that can help you. And I think, the point is to think about ways that you can, streamline those efforts.
For sure.
Without burning yourself out.
Absolutely. You want to free up your time and energy to really focus on the things that move the needle.
Yes.
The things that really require that human touch.
Exactly.
The strategy.
Okay, so we've talked about communication that cuts through.
Right.
We've talked about relentless consistency.
Yeah.
The third skill he talks about is adaptability and speed.
Okay.
And I think this is maybe the one that feels the most, relevant to, where we are right now in the world.
Yeah, the landscape is changing so fast.
It's changing so fast.
It's
New platforms all the time.
Yeah.
Like the algorithms change every 5 minutes, it feels like.
All the time, right?
Consumer behavior.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's going on anymore.
People want something different every single day.
So you have to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to adapt quickly.
Absolutely.
Or you're going to get left behind.
And I think it's not even a nice to have anymore.
Oh.
It's like a fundamental requirement.
It's table stakes.
Yeah. If you're going to stay relevant and competitive.
Yes, you have to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
One of the things that he talks about that I thought was really interesting is that he really pushes back on this idea of waiting for everything to be perfect.
Okay.
Before you launch something.
Yeah.
Before you put something out into the world.
Right.
Because he says that in a lot of cases, the market rewards the people who are willing to move quickly.
To act fast.
Yeah.
To take action.
Put stuff out there.
Put it out there.
Test it.
Test it.
And then adjust.
Yeah.
Based on, real world feedback.
Yeah.
Rather than the people who, they get so stuck in trying to make something perfect.
Right.
That they never actually end up launching it.
They missed the boat.
They missed the boat completely.
Yeah.
So he's saying that fear that so many people have about, putting something out there that's not 100% perfect.
Yeah.
That's actually what's holding you back.
It is.
Because the truth is, you're never going to know for sure what's going to work.
Right.
Until you put it out into the world.
Until you test it.
Until you test it.
Get that feedback.
And sometimes the things that you think are going to be like amazing flops.
Yeah.
And the things that you're kind of like, I don't know about this.
Right.
End up taking off.
Absolutely.
And the only way to know is to try it.
To test it out.
And to be willing to, course correct along the way.
Yeah.
So he kind of breaks down, what this actually looks like in practice.
Okay.
So he says, being adaptable means being willing to launch those campaigns.
Okay.
Even if they're not perfect.
Right.
It means looking at your data.
Your analytics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at the feedback that you're getting from your audience.
Absolutely.
And being willing to make changes.
Right.
Sometimes those changes need to happen really quickly.
Pivot.
You've got to pivot.
Yeah.
It also means being willing to let go of, things that used to work.
Yes.
But maybe they're not working anymore.
Because what worked 5 years ago might not work today.
Might not work today.
And in fact, it might actually be hurting you to continue doing it.
Yeah. And so you have to be, really attuned to what your audience is responding to.
Right now, in the moment.
In the moment.
Yeah.
So it's about being really nimble.
Right.
It's about being responsive.
Yeah.
And not being afraid to, try different things and experiment.
Absolutely.
And that speed component of this,
right,
I think is super important.
Yeah.
How quickly can you, test something?
Yep.
Get the data.
See what's working.
Figure out what's working and then adjust based on that.
Yeah.
The faster you can do that,
the better.
The better.
Absolutely.
The faster you're going to see the results.
Because the world moves quickly. If you can iterate quickly and adapt quickly,
yes,
you're going to find success faster.
And the other thing he says is when you do find something that's working,
yeah,
double down.
Double down hard.
Do more of that.
Yeah.
Because you've found something that's working.
Yeah.
Capitalize on it.
Don't wait.
Don't wait.
Do it now.
And so it's really about embracing this mindset of, continuous improvement.
For sure.
And looking at, when things don't work.
Yeah.
Not as failures,
Right.
but as opportunities to learn.
To learn what to do next.
Exactly what to do next.
Yeah, that.
He includes another great quote here.
Okay.
This one's from Neil Patel.
Okay.
And Neil Patel says, "The best marketing doesn't feel like marketing."
Interesting.
Which is interesting.
I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah.
And the way that Travs connects that is he says, sometimes we get so in our heads
Right.
about trying to create like the perfect marketing thing
Yes.
that it actually ends up feeling really inauthentic.
Yeah. It feels forced.
Yeah, it feels forced. And so, if you can be more adaptable,
Yeah.
if you can move more quickly,
Yeah.
if you can respond to, what your audience is actually doing and saying,
Right.
you're more likely to create something that feels genuine.
Authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, the whole point of this idea of adaptability is that it helps you become more resilient.
Right. Because the only constant is change.
Right.
So you have to be prepared for that.
We have to be prepared, and the market's going to change.
Yeah.
Competitors are going to come and go.
New technologies are going to come out.
You're going to have challenges that you don't even see coming.
Right.
So being able to pivot and adjust
Yeah.
is what's going to allow you to not just
Survive.
but thrive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Long term.
It's about being flexible,
Yes.
mentally agile.
Okay. So to recap the 3 skills.
Okay, let's recap.
Communication that cuts through.
Got it.
Relentless consistency.
Yep.
And adaptability and speed.
Number 3.
And I think what's important to remember is these aren't just, 3 separate things that you do.
Right.
They all work together.
Yeah.
And there's also like an underlying mindset,
A foundation.
a foundation that's really important here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he highlights a few elements of that.
Okay.
So the first one is curiosity.
Okay.
Always be learning.
Always be curious.
Always be curious.
Yeah.
Understanding what's working now.
Right.
How are things changing?
What's new?
What's new?
What can you learn today?
What can you learn?
Yeah.
How could you get better?
Absolutely.
The second one is this willingness to, what he calls ship messy work,
Oh, okay.
which is basically the idea that getting something done
Yeah.
is better than waiting for it to be perfect.
Perfect is the enemy of good.
Exactly.
Or done.
And then the third one is this idea of treating marketing as a daily discipline.
A practice.
Yes, a practice.
Like anything else.
Something that you're doing every day.
Yeah, consistency, right.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
that consistency.
Pull back to consistency.
It all comes back to consistency.
It does.
But it's because you know the results that you see in marketing.
Yeah.
They happen over time.
It's that compounding effect.
Yes, it's the compound effect.
Over time.
And then the last one, which I think is so important,
Okay.
is embracing failure as part of the process.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to have failures.
You're going to fail a lot, in fact.
Yeah.
But you can't let that stop you.
No.
Failure is how we learn.
Exactly. Failure is just information.
It's data.
Yeah.
It's telling you what doesn't work so you can figure out what does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you know all of that together.
Yeah.
That creates that, the grit and the resilience that you need to actually be successful in marketing.
For sure.
Because it's not easy.
It's not. No.
But I think the payoff is huge.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that he says that I think is so powerful
Okay.
is that these 3 skills,
Yeah.
they're platform proof.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Right. Like it doesn't matter if we're talking about
Yeah.
LinkedIn or TikTok or email marketing or, some platform that hasn't even been invented yet.
Right.
If you can communicate clearly,
Yeah.
if you can show up consistently,
Yep.
and if you can adapt quickly,
To the new environments.
Yeah.
The new trends.
you're going to be successful.
That's it.
And that to me is the real magic of this.
I agree.
It's like
Mhm.
stop chasing the bright shiny objects
Yeah.
and focus on the things that actually matter
The fundamentals.
of the fundamentals.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear from you
Yeah.
as you're thinking about your own marketing efforts.
Yeah.
Take a minute and think about which of these 3 skills is maybe your weakest link right now.
Yeah. Where are you struggling?
Yeah. Where are you struggling?
Yeah.
And then what's one small thing that you can do today
One action step.
to start getting better in that area?
I love it.
Because I really believe that if you can focus on these things,
Mm-hmm.
it can really transform your marketing.
Absolutely.
It can transform your business.